I love junk radios, and here's a couple of S38s, S38Cs. Don't remember where I got them. I probably said this on other videos, but these S38s, you can pick them up sometimes at Hamfest for a couple, $5 each if they're missing parts, and I have bought a bunch of them. This is 2, and these are missing all the knobs. I think the one on the bottom is missing all the tubes, but it does have the little pointers on the dial. This one right here doesn't have pointers on the dial, but I found some on eBay. They're in this box here. I paid more for the pointers than the radio's worth, probably. But that's what I like to do. This one, I'll do this one first because it's in the worst shape. It's got a big dent on the side of it. Another dent here on the front of it. And let's see. That's all I see, major dents. This one on the bottom, I don't see any dents, but I do see where somebody's put a hole here on the side of it or something. Anyway, oh yeah, this one's got a bad dent on here. So what I'll do with these is I will completely take a finish off of them, paint them, repaint them with hammer tone. The hammer tone you buy in the stores doesn't match the Hallicrafters exactly, but it's okay. These radios would have been parted out anyway, so I'm going to save them. I make my own knobs. I've got to do a video on how I make my knobs. I mold my own, so that's not a problem. I've got a bunch of them up on these shelves here. I think it's 4 or 5 up there. And here's another one. And then in my warehouse, I call it, I think I got another 4 or 5. I think I got probably at least 10 of these things. So I'm going to go to work and see if I can fix them up. This is I think it's the E version there. That's a B version. Not sure what that one is, the way it's covered up. And that's another C. That's an S53. This one must be a C. It's got the hammer tone finish on it. So I got plenty to work on. Okay, this one we're going to work on first. And let's take it out of the cabinet and see what we got. Well, this one's going to be fun. I can see a lot of work that's been done on it. There's a mica capacitor. Let's see, let me find my little pointer here. There's a mica resistor. I got the leads twisted together and soldered, which is a good secure connection, but it ain't factory. I can just tell there's a, look like somebody started working on this. It's got some electrolytics here to replace the filter cap. Another one here, some new coupling capacitors, but then over here some of the old papers are still in it. It's going to be fun. One of the things I noticed, this is a 38C. My recollection is 38C, they cured the hot chassis problem. I think it's got a floating ground with a capacitor separates the circuitry from the chassis. I think the C had that. Maybe it was a B when they started, when they corrected it. Power cords have been cut off of it. One thing, this, I don't know when they started, what model they started using these miniature IF cans. Maybe the B or even the A. They had the earlier ones had the old type IF cans with trimmer caps on top of them for adjusting the IFs. These use those little mica wafers that are prone to silver migration. Kind of wonder if somebody didn't start working on this and couldn't get it to work right and didn't know about silver migration. Most of the time I just take these things out and go ahead and take the wafers out of them and put caps on the outside of them. I don't even check to see if they need it or not, just do it, because eventually they're going to start causing you problems. And here again, I'm not sure what model they started using this, what I call early integrated circuit. It's a bunch of caps and resistors in a little circuit. Most of them were made by Sprague. That one's a Sprague. And so hopefully that's good. If not, those are easy to replace with individual components. And this one is the one that doesn't have the dial pointers, but I found some on eBay, so I got those. And this one doesn't have any of the tubes in it. Small problem. And it looks like the output transformer has been replaced. Got new screws in it anyway. So there we go. I love junk radios. This one qualifies. Immediately I run into a severe problem here. This antenna coil, this winding right here is burned out. You can see how dark it is and how black it is, and if you look real good you can see a little hairline. Let me see if I can get it here. Right there is a little strand of wire. So I have done a bunch of these S38s, and I don't know how many of them, but a lot of them have the antenna coil burn out. I don't know whether they were more prone to lightning or what it was, but so now I've already looked on eBay. I couldn't find one for sale on eBay, so I'm going to abandon this chassis for a little while, look around. Maybe at a Hamfest I can pick up another junk radio. I've got a bunch of S38s, but I don't want to rob them. Really, the rest of them are pretty decent radios, so I don't want to rob those. I'll see if I can come across one. Who knows, I might even try to rewind this one. Just have to see how it goes. Well, I got that winding off. You can see there's one side of the winding, there's the other side of the winding, and there's one of the holes that one end went into, and there's the other hole that the other end went into, and that is 6 and 10 on that. That's that coil right there. Has a 10K resistor across it, and I would, according to this, that would be band 4. So and I counted the turns as best I could, and it looked like about 165 turns of really fine wire. So now I'm going to try to rewind this thing. We'll see how it goes. As thin as that wire is, if I can do this without breaking it, it's going to be a miracle. The other thing I need to figure out is I need to have something on each side of this coil to kind of hold it in place, because I can't do that baffler winding like they did, crisscrossing across. So I need something here to hold the sides in place, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do about that. So that's my dilemma right now, and we're going to go from there. This is what I came up with. Over here I wrapped masking tape till I built it up to form one side, one of the guardrails. There's a little hole there where I left that open so I could get my wire through it. Then I used a cable tie on this side. It's such a small space there, I couldn't put anything in there too wide, so I put a couple of cable ties there. Hopefully that'll hold that side. And there's the hole that the other end of the coil goes into. So now I got to figure out, I got some of that real thin wire here. I didn't measure it, but I'm pretty sure it's the same size, darn close anyway. And I got to come up with some system to kind of put some drag on this so it don't unravel. I just have to count it manually. So let me see what I can come up with. I was born in the South, so we know how to make things work without anything. So I just took me a tall wood screw and screwed it down to my workbench, set that down on it, and that way it puts a little drag on it. So let's try it and see if it'll. I got it wound on there. Need to pull those little stray ones back towards the center. I'm going to put lacquer on it. I hope that lacquer don't dissolve that enamel. I don't think it will, but I'm going to put some lacquer on it and to hold the windings in place. I've left me a good pigtail actually on both ends in case I need to take off some windings or even put more on it. I don't think I'm going to need to put more on it. I may have overdone it, but in case I do, I'm going to leave some extra on each end so I'll have something to get hold to. All done. I hope it'll work. I've checked all the continuity on the coils. Everything's right. Here's my coil that I rewound. And you can see I've got some pretty long leads on that coil sticking out of both ends, so I can get hold to them if I need to take away some turns or add some turns. I just took the chassis out of the dishwasher. Yes, you heard me right. I put it in a dishwasher. And this is only the second one I've done that way. It worked just beautiful on the first one. So I'm going to try it on this chassis. And I've got it in the oven, drying it out. So I'm ready now to get started cleaning it up even more. Maybe steel wool, maybe Scotch Guard or something to clean the chassis even more. If it don't look good, I'll paint it. It's out of the dishwasher and it really cleaned it up good. That darkness on the chassis, I don't know about that. I've tried Scotch-Brite, sandpaper. I don't know what that is, but it's not coming off. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this one. I may end up painting this chassis or leaving it like it is. After all, it is a junk radio. We'll see. Dishwasher cleaned the bottom of it better than it did the top. That's looking a lot better than what it did. One little issue right here. See that wire? There's supposed to be a trimmer mounted right here. According to the schematic, it was like 525 picofarad trimmer. They must have robbed it out. I think they were probably using this radio as a parts radio after they, whatever reason, they gave up on it. I know one thing, they had this these antenna coils wired incorrectly. When I took them off, compared to the schematic, they had those incorrect. May have one of the reasons that they gave up on it. So anyway, I've got a mount of trimmer in here. I think one side of the trimmer goes to this terminal right here, and the other one, I guess, is connected here. Fortunately, I got another one of these S38Cs over there that I can compare it to, and then compare it to the schematic, so I'll get it right. Alright, next dilemma. These two IF transformers. There's one there and there's one there. And that's the 38C version of this radio. They went to these little small miniature transformers. These are the ones that's got the ceramic or mica wafers in there that have the silver migration. So do I pull them out and take care of that now, or wait till I get the radio playing and see if it's a problem? And even if it's not a problem right now, down the road it's going to be a problem for somebody else, not me. I probably won't be living when somebody else gets hold of this. but it's not that big a deal. I've done, I don't know how many of these transformers. Take that wafer out of it and mount an external capacitor across the windings. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. It'd be a whole lot easier to get this one right here without that big antenna coil mounted in here. So while that antenna coil's out, I think I'm going to get that one. I think I'm just going to go ahead and do them. After all, I'm retired and got nothing else to do. Most everything on these old transformers, IF transformers, is keyed to that green dot right there, that corner. So I'll take my magic marker and mark my metal case at the same spot, so I'll get it back in the metal housing same way it came out. So I got it out, and I don't know if this camera will focus on this or not, but you'll see that little split right there. You got plastic here and you got plastic there. Sandwiched in between those two is a piece of mica with a silver on it. That forms the two plates of the capacitor. And then it's all held together with a rivet. So you got to drill that rivet out carefully. You got to be careful with this all together. Maybe you can see those little wires. Those wires are so small you can't even hardly see them with the human eye. And they are easy to break. I've broken them before and had to fight to get them soldered back on the pin. This is a very delicate operation. I drilled the end off of that rivet, and I should be able to shove that rivet forward now, and all of this mechanism will come apart. There's that little wafer. See that blackness around the center? That's where the silver has migrated over, and what it'll do, one side will migrate to the other side and both sides will touch that rivet, and then you either get a dead short or you get a crackling noise. And so that's the reason you got to get these things out of here. Eventually, this radio was built in the 40s, so we're talking an 70 to 80-year-old radio. That thing's been in there, had a lot of chance for the silver to migrate. Now, see those two little pieces of metal there? One is kind of touching the other. Well, normally they wouldn't touch because they would have that mica in between them, insulating them. So now what you got to do is you got to cut those back so they don't touch, because that would be a dead short across the coil. So I'm going to do that. One other thing about drilling out this rivet: you need to gently clamp this thing in a vise, because if that drill hangs on that little brass rivet, it could twist the transfer. I used to try to do them holding them in my hand, but I ruined a couple of them because the drill would grab it and jerk it and then pull some of those little fine wires off. So gently clamp it in a vise to drill that out, and drill it very slowly. Don't put a lot of pressure on your drill bit, because if it catches, could do damage. I pulled those two little pieces of metal up and snipped them off with my snippers so they won't touch each other. As I explained, that'll give you a dead short across your coil. Other thing I do during this process is I'm constantly checking to make sure I have broken those little fine wires that go to those terminals. The other thing is, once you do this, I don't know if I can show this with one hand or not, but these terminals don't have anything to hold them, so they are kind of loose and unstable. So I mixed me up a little JB weld and put on them to hold them in place. Because once you start soldering on these terminals down here and moving them around, putting force on them, you don't want them moving around. I first worried about the JB weld, thought maybe it would short the contacts or something, but I've done many of them, and JB weld doesn't seem to affect them, so that's what I'm going to do. This is that wafer out of transformer number 2. See that blackness between the two white sections there? That's silver migration. I dug around in my junk box, and the highest thing I could find in my junk box was, I think this is about a 450 picofarad. The schematic calls for a 525, so I'm going to put that in there. If it's a 525 max, I don't know where it adjusted out to, hopefully below 450, but if not, I can always parallel another capacitor to it and bring it in range. I've replaced all the caps and all resistors, or most of them anyway. Some of these over here, somebody had already replaced the electrolytics. A little bit of kind of sloppy construction, but it's good and strong, so I'm not going to worry about it. And the rest of them I did. Here's all the capacitors that I did and all the resistors I did. I wound this section 1 on this antenna coil. That lightning had got into it, so I unwound it and rewound it, and I have no idea whether the inductance is going to be right. I've got it fixed so I'm pretty sure if anything, inductance is going to be high, and I may have to remove some turns, but I've got it fixed so I can do that easily if I need to, get it to resonate. I took these IF transformers out and took the little mica disc out and replaced it with, you can see those little disc capacitors I put in their place. So all in all, there's been a lot of work done on this, a lot of hours put into it, and I probably wouldn't, even if I wanted to sell it, which I don't, I wouldn't get what I've got in capacitors and parts, but I have molded me a couple of tuning dials. I've molded one of the other smaller knobs, and the fourth one, the other smaller knob, is in the cooker, so I will have a new set of knobs for it. I got this all recapped and resistors replaced. I put a set of tubes in it, and I put it on a variac. I wanted to bring it up and see if it would come alive, and it did come alive, but huge amount of hum. It sounded exactly like the filter cap were bad, and I mean exactly like, because I could turn the volume down completely and it still hummed. And so I said, well, these filter caps, I didn't put them in. They were in this radio when I got it, but they looked new. I said they look new, but maybe one's bad, or maybe they're hooked up wrong. My first thought was maybe they got the positive to ground versus a negative or something like that, but I didn't really see anything wrong. Then I got to kind of tracing things with the schematic to make sure it was hooked up correctly, and then it hit me. Whoever put these in, right up here is where the strap around that filter cap went back in the day, and they'd use that as a ground. Same over here on this one. They had found me a pointer here. This one right here goes to this terminal right here, and that terminal is a chassis ground on this terminal strip. So they run the negatives to chassis ground. And get my schematic over here. There's the 3 electrolytics. And you see that little symbol right there? Well, on these radios, that means floating ground. I call it a floating ground. It's not connected to the chassis. It's isolated away from the chassis by a 0.05. And chassis ground looks like that symbol right there at the bottom. Looks like a yard rake or whatever. So they had hooked the negatives of these electrolytics to chassis ground rather than floating ground, and that ain't gonna work. So I gotta fix that. I mounted one of those little single standoffs there that isolates those negative leads from ground around a wire over here to this terminal. Get my pointer here. Where is it? This terminal here, which is floating ground. It has about 15 things attached to it already because it was just a convenient place to connect a lot of things to floating ground, and then I've added a few. But anyway, and then I moved this one to floating ground. So we'll give it another try on the Variac now. I fixed those 3 capacitors and put it to floating ground and turned it on, and still had a problem, and realized there's a little 20 microfarad here goes on the cathode of the audio tube. That one also, the negative lead was directed to chassis ground, so I fixed that. And that solved some problems, but still no radio. So got to making voltage checks, and on the pin 3 of the 12 SA7 I had no B+. On pin 4 I do. Well, there's a B+ right there, and it comes down and goes through this oscillator coil and back up to plate 4, or to pin 4. I had voltage on pin 4, but not on pin 3 of the IF transformer, so, or pin 3 of the tube. So remember what I told you about dealing with these IF transformers. They are extremely delicate. And these little wires you can barely see them. See if I can get it to focus on one over here that's intact. Anyway, I check these things almost every time I handle them, and I checked this one before I put it back in, and both windings were intact. But that winding that goes to pin 3 of the SA7 had no voltage on it, and the winding that the voltage goes through on the IF transformer was open. So I pulled it out, and it was right where my thumb is. You can see it was broken between there and the pin. Probably when I put it back in, doesn't take much, broke that wire. So these things are very difficult to repair. The wire is so bare. What I did was come back up here where that blob of solder is and scrape that enamel wire just a little bit. I got a blob of solder on it, and then now you can see a piece of magnet wire. It's a much larger diameter than what they wind these transformers with, a little easier to handle. I tacked that onto it and come on down here and tacked it on the pin. So now I've got continuity through that coil again, but I'm just showing you this to show you, I know a lot of you have already done this before, but maybe somebody out there that's never done it, and I can tell you these little fine wires are dogs. So now I'm going to need to wrap this thing with some masking tape or electrical tape, because you got little fine wires left over here. If they touch that metal sleeve that goes over this transformer, then you still have problems. So let me wrap some tape around this to insulate it, see how it works.